So, Trent, why the Odyssey?
You know, I asked myself that a lot of different times approaching it. I think the first time that it actually flew into my radar, I was over at 2016's session of USITT, and I just saw a design, a theoretical design for the Odyssey by Mary Zimmerman, and I've always been a strong fan of Mary Zimmerman's work. She really leans into an ensemble feel, which is always my passion, is ensemble work, and something that is a lot more fluid so that we can breathe a lot of artistic life into it and have a sense of our own ownership of whatever we put on stage.
Hi, Trinity.
Hi.
So this production had an untimely end. What was your role in the production?
I was the production stage manager.
What are some of the responsibilities that come with being a production stage manager?
So as a production stage manager, it's my duty to run meetings and organize things and ensure that everybody's at rehearsal on time and all the time, and everything's as organized as possible so the show runs as fluid as possible.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and the time that you've spent here at Snow College.
Well, Can I say my age? Is that allowed? Okay. Okay, I'm 19. I've been at Snow College. This is my second year last semester. While I've been at Snow College, I've changed from being a double major in technical theater and biology to solely a theater major. It's been a good experience. I've taken every single theater class I think we have to offer, other than the acting classes, of course, because I don't do that. No hate.
Hey, Katie.
Hi.
Tell us about your experience with the Odyssey. What role you were going to be playing?
So I was going to be playing Calypso, and I was super excited because, well, one, because she's just a fun person. She's such a fun scene to play. Like, I was so excited. I was really excited because it's the last show of the year, or it was gonna be, and I had been in the very first one, and I felt like that was kind of like my beginner, like I would do the best I can, but then that was gonna be the show that I would kind of look back when I was done with everything as kind of this is where I started, this is where I got to, this is why, like this was all the sad times, all the happy times, all the really tired whatever times, like that was worth it to get to that point. And so I was really excited for this one as a end of year, what I've learned so far, and especially because I was feeling a lot more confident in myself, because the first year, every time I go somewhere new, it's just like really hard for me. I don't know where I fit in, and I don't know where I fit in with myself almost. And so then this one was going to be kind of like, I knew most of the people in the cast, and then I was going to force myself and force the other people who didn't know me to know me, and we're going to be friends, and it's going to be great.
Hi, Shelby.
Hi, Trent.
How you hanging in there?
Hanging in there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell us about what you've been dealing with.
So I was props for the Odyssey, and then that got canceled, so my schedule cleared up quite a bit.
Tell us about props.
So props I'd never done before, so it was kind of, everything was new for me. So when I started, I was reaching out to other people who have done props before, and they were telling me all these different things about like what you're supposed to do and how props works, I guess. So I started taking their advice, and I went through the script, I picked up the props and everything that were within it, and then I made lists and gathered rehearsal props that we never even used, but at the end of the day it was hopefully going to be props for the Odyssey, with most of them being painted black to tie into the contemporary theme that we had. And yeah, I don't have to paint stuff black anymore.
Hey, Eric. How you doing?
All right.
How have you been holding up?
Up and down. It's, some days are fine, some days are pretty rough because, social isolation is just the worst.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us the story of what brought you here to Snow College.
Well, at first I was going to do mechanical engineering because I was always the kid who could take things apart and put them back together. And everyone was like, oh, you should go into engineering, you have the mind for that. I was like, okay. And then first semester I had an 8 a.m. trigonometry class. and I very quickly realized that I was not willing to go to trigonometry at 8 a.m., but then I had a stagecraft at 8 a.m. this semester, and I was happy to go every day. And that's kind of why I changed to majoring in theater and focusing more on acting and this kind of stuff, because it wasn't a chore to go to an 8 a.m. class. It was exciting. It was fun.
Hi. Hi. What's up? My name is Yusuf Harak, and I'm an international student from Morocco. This is my second semester. I was not aware of how good the theater department was last semester, just because I didn't have time to come see all the shows. But then this semester, I decided to take an acting course, and one of the assignments was to come see the musical. And so I came and I assured the second day, and I was just like hearing about everybody talking about it and how good it was, and I just didn't think that it was gonna be that good. And so I came, and then I watched the musical, and that was just an amazing experience. I started crying in the middle of the show because I just thought that I would never be able to be one of the cool people and be on stage and get to do what I've always wanted to do, because I was not aware of how much I wanted to be part of a play or musical before actually seeing one, because that was my first one. I am a science major, and in my country we don't get to do science and art at the same time. I never thought that I could be an artist or just do something that is related to art. One day I was talking to my friend who is in Joseph, and I was like, hey, I watched the performance and I really liked it, and I really want to be part of a musical next semester or the next year, and I'm ready to work day and night, and I know that I don't know how to dance or act or sing, and that's just a crazy idea, but I really loved it, and that's what I want to do. And then Trent, the director, he was walking behind us, and then he was like, oh, hey, actually you can start being part of the crew with the tech people and just be familiar with the stage and with the people around, and just get an idea on how things work, and then we will be able to know who you are, and then next time when you audition to a play or a musical, we would know who you are, and then you would have more chances to get accepted. And then I was like, oh, that's so cool. I want to do it. I really want to do it, and I was so excited. I was so happy.
I'm Sierra Johns, and I am the assistant director for the Odyssey by Snow College.
I like how you put that. You are. Because you are.
I am. Well, the production's still going. Yeah, the
Yeah.
coronavirus was like, hey, but no, we were like, suck it. We're doing this.
Right? Ride or die.
Ride or die.
Tell us about your experience here at Snow College leading up to this.
I came to Snow College last year, so this is my second year at Snow College. And my high school didn't really have a theater program, but I knew that I wanted to study theater, so I was just thrown in. I know that I've always wanted to be a director, and last year I was supposed to graduate from Snow College, and then I had our theater awards banquet. Trent, the director, came up to me and he was like, hey, do you want to assistant direct my show next year? And I was like, oh man, I'm leaving. And then the next day I went up to the graduation offices and I was like, hey, I'm staying another year. And then I went up to Trent and I was like, hey, can I still be your assistant director? Because you're stuck with me. And he said, yeah. And I was really excited for it. I deferred my graduation to assistant direct the Odyssey and directing something that I love and something that I'm going to do one day. And I was really excited. And then coronavirus was like, hey, let's be roommates. And
So yeah, I was really excited about the prospects of doing the Odyssey. I didn't understand really why, besides the fact that everybody's read the Odyssey from when they're little kids, and honestly, I was not one of those people. I actually hadn't read the Odyssey until I wanted to do the Odyssey. So Through persistence, I'd say. Through persistence, the Snow College Theater Department selected to do the Odyssey, and that I would be able to do it. After all that time, was that 4 years, I've been asking to do the Odyssey, and as soon as I mentioned I was doing the Odyssey to Dimitri, his excitement caught fire. Ever since Dimitri came to Snow College to work, we have been real keen on wanting to work together and collaborate together. And so we saw that the Odyssey would be a perfect opportunity. So as to why, as we approached the mounting process of the Odyssey, I was challenged to figure out why I would actually want to do it. What brought the excitement along was just specifically for me. But as a director, you have to find out ways to engage your artists, your young artists in the cast, and not have something that's so superfluous as like a cotton candy type show. This is going to be a lot more substance to it. And I was driving down the freeway. I saw on a billboard the opium epidemic of Utah. And for some reason, it just stuck in my head, and it resonated in such a way that as I laid down to sleep that night, I started thinking about the real world implications of Odyssey, and specifically Odysseus going on his journey, and how a war hero, an icon to the people, a celebrity in his own right, the first celebrity, would be pressured and have issues with addiction to drugs, substance abuse. And then with that, I just extrapolated even more that the Odyssey is not just a journey home for Odysseus. It could be a journey for recovery and sobriety and a sense of home that way. And I thought that was a very solid place to take, and a very engaging place to take the Odyssey. I thought that would engage a lot of people's creativity, but also challenge them to rise above the traditional approach to theater, the traditional approach to performance. Maybe push it into something that's a little closer to home, a little closer and tender to people's lives at home. Because everybody, whether we know it or not, we are affected by this epidemic of opioids. Unfortunately, now we have a pandemic happening, so it's not just art that's addressing, making commentary or posing a question about the recovery of drugs and the epidemic of opioids in Utah. But now it's shifted its course. We were blown off course, and we found ourselves in choppy waters of a pandemic.
Is that good?
That was great.
Yes! Cool. Nailed it.
Warren, how are you doing?
I'm actually doing pretty well in spite of everything, and it's kind of weird. Maybe it's because I went and got my aggression out on a printer, but
Oh, really?
well, not recently. It was the night that we made the decision to.
Oh. Let's go back to that
fun.
night.
Yeah. So.
How did it play out for you?
So what happened was, you guys had your emergency production meeting, and I figured at that point that shit was gonna hit the fan. And we came in, and instead of doing a warm-up or anything like that, we just went straight into discussion, because there were alternatives. Like, we could have tried to run the show by Friday of this week, before we knew that we were going to be completely shut down, when we thought school was going to be a possibility for a camera or for a really small audience, like 20 people, or we could do a film project with it. There were a bunch of possibilities that you guys had discussed, but ultimately it was up to the cast and how they felt about it. And so we discussed the options, and out of desperation, I went up and whispered to Dimitri another possibility. If we were recording it, then we wouldn't need to be fully memorized. We'd only need to be memorized enough to film a scene, and then we could cut it and redo it however much we needed. And so out of desperation, I offered that, and that was put on the table. And we took a tally. We had blank slips of paper handed out to everybody. You wrote, yes, go on with recording it and letting it be a relic that we'd soon delete, or we just stopped working on the show. And was it a simple majority vote?
It wasn't so simple as that.
Okay.
We took a vote from the cast, and we were like, well, what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to continue, or do you guys not want to? And it was a very, very close call. And some people were like, I wish, but my health is just not in the best place to do this, so I can't, but I would if I could. And so then we were like, all right, for the people who want to do this, let's do it.
It was hard, because I knew that no matter what, if we were to go forward and try to put on the show in a week, you'd have people that were just die-hard dedicated, like the ones that are here today, and then you'd have people that would just give up, because it's a lot to take over emotionally. Like, we just got the entire rest of our semester cut, so people aren't going to be able to walk for graduation. We're not going to be able to have a final end-of-year banquet with each other. We don't really get to say goodbye. So I feel like there were people that are lacking the closure, and some of them would fill that void with the rehearsal process this week, and some of them just would shut down. And it was hard to gauge and tell what was going to happen and where everybody stood. I think that it was a hard decision to make, for sure. There's so much work that's already been put into this, and it's so hard to not see each other every day, especially when we know that, like, this is it. This is it for the year. There's so many of us that are done after this that are just gonna be gone, and it's hard knowing that it was kind of ripped away from us.
It was shock, but I wasn't completely surprised, because it was kind of creeping up on us. Like, we were like, oh, things are bad. Oh, people are taking more extreme measures. And I think in the back of my mind, I knew that there was a good chance things were gonna be stopped for the time being. That they were going to do some big measures to try and help mitigate the spread of this pandemic.
And boy, that night was, I went from the happiest person on earth to the saddest person on earth. And I almost cried. I did my best to hold my tears and not show how bad things were. I went home and I cried the whole freaking night. It was so bad. And then I came the following day to just have normal rehearsals, and not rehearsals, but just, just hanging out and just do something, because friends said, the play is canceled, but that doesn't mean that we're not gonna do anything. We're still gonna do something. We're still gonna do a short documentary, and we can do some shadow plays. And I was like, okay, that's better than nothing, that's still something good.
I was so ready just to keep it going, to keep everything alive. But then that day we were told that the show couldn't go on anymore, but that maybe we could do like a next week rehearsal and then try and film it and do stuff like that. And we did a vote on pieces of paper, and I was like, I'm so ready. I was like, I don't care, I'll come in whenever hours of the day. I'm ready to do this. I'm not gonna let anything stop me from this.
What was some of the hard choices that you've had to make?
Staying, actually, because I saw more than half these people leaving. I was like, oh, is there a point of me being here? And I was talking to one of my mentors, and I was like, what do I do? And he was like, what's stopping you from doing it this morning? And I was like, nothing. And then he was like, why are you thinking about leaving now? I mean, in 5 years, when you're out of school, you would be praying for a moment to be working on something like this. And I was like, yeah. And I'm glad. I'm glad that I decided to stick it through because great experience. First time I ever worked with shadow play, and that was really cool. That was.
Let's talk about that night. What was your experience?
It was interesting because I showed up and we turned off the lights except one. We had a source 4 on the floor, shining at a curtain. Not a curtain, but a screen. And then Trent was like, all right, perform this scene. And we didn't really have any prescribed blocking. It was just the artist's choice of what they wanted to do.
And then Trent said that he was going to still have rehearsals if you still wanted to be here. And I was like, oh heck yeah, I'm there. And that we're gonna be doing shadow play. And so then the next rehearsal we had, we were playing with shadows, which was so cool because I've always loved shadows. I remember going to the dance concert and it was like, oh, it's like mesmerizing to me.
And so I came, and then we had all these settings and those lights, and we were just dancing and just doing some shadow plays, and I'm like, dang it, this is the kind of things that I only see on movies or on social media. That's not, I get to be part of this amazing thing.
Hello, this is an interview between Trent being the director.
Colin Jensen played Odysseus.
McKinley Wright, played Penelope.
And we're just going to have a conversation with a microphone.
Next to an empty stage.
It's disheartening because a lot of the things that bring me happiness and joy and peace, I can't do anymore.
Our passion's been taken.
Our passion has been taken away, and the people I would love to hang out and be around, we have to be careful and precautious, and
just any gathering in general is not really allowed, accepted.
So how do you feel about it?
I feel robbed. I feel robbed of Odyssey. This was going to be almost a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I mean, Colin and I are actually engaged, and the opportunity to play a married couple before we're married was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Let's talk a little bit further about the road leading up to this. What's your story?
I came to Snow as an actor, and I feel like I'm leaving more as a mix of a technician and an actor, which has been a marvelous experience. I've got the opportunity to be an assistant director and a stage manager and, a lighting designer, and I learned how to operate lights and fly rails and sound systems, whereas before I didn't have any of that knowledge, and now I'm walking away with that knowledge. Not even the technical aspect. I feel like I'm walking away as a better actor and overall just kind of a better human.
Yeah. I came here as an actor techie. I started out just designing costumes and props. Working so closely with Trent has let me expand all of that knowledge, and I have been the props master for several shows. I have built sets, not just for Snow College, but helped build a set professionally. American Psycho, played at the Eccles Theater in Salt Lake, which also ended up
tragically coming to an abrupt end.
Yep. So we haven't had a whole lot of luck with shows this year.
I think both of us are in the Odysseus category.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, it's a shipwreck after shipwreck.
Feels a little bit like we're just drowning in despair, yeah. Because not only have we had our shows taken away from us, but Kins and I were planning on getting married on May 30th. But we have, in light of the situation, canceled that. Postponed,
Still gonna happen, but just not sure when that would be, just so we keep our friends and family safe.
It's safer for them if they don't come. And that was a really hard decision for us to make. It was a really hard decision.
We made that decision in the same day that the decision was made that Odyssey will not be performed. Again, shipwreck after shipwreck, but within the span of 24 hours.
No, we're on the shores of Ithaca right now.
Yeah.
And
just gotta kill a couple suitors. No, but hopefully I think at the end of this we can plant an oar.
I think that has such a significant and powerful, solemn voice to this show.
Yeah.
We've went to great lengths in order to find a singular voice in a cast full of 25 people. And, we've only been rehearsing
not even a week.
And yet we were finding amazing things. We were discovering amazing things.
Beautiful moments.
Yeah. And I already felt, bonded to the cast. We all came into this like as a together, as a unit, ready to work and in a way move and bend together. Like during our table read, I think there was a moment just like reading through it, all of us, at least I did, I looked around and everybody was still, we had hope. We had a togetherness that we were going to have fun with it, and there was discovery. Even the one time we got to do in-depth table work, there was a lot of discovery, and not only from the people playing those characters, from the people who were just a part of the show in any capacity.
I agree. One of the big moments for me besides that table read was I had the opportunity to do an improv dance based around the very first shipwreck in the Odyssey, and it really was just improv. We turned on this song that was just beautiful, and we kind of disassembled a ship that we had made out of ladders and ropes. Then we just danced around like we were in water. I know a lot of those people that I got to participate in that with. Theater people and technicians and dancers. And it was all in that one moment that it didn't matter who you are. There was no separation between the field of art. There was no separation, and it was all just people working together to create something beautiful. And I'd never done anything like that before.
And like even doing that rehearsal, we didn't know, for sure.
No, but we did a rehearsal like we knew we were going to have a show.
Mm-hmm. I'm a true believer in that what happens on the stage kind of, in a way, stays with the stage. And even though we will continue on, and, that story, the things that were felt won't be taken away. And I feel like that you can feel that. When I came to Snow and I watched the productions and just walked through the halls, you could feel that the laughter, the hope, the inspiration that people have felt in productions that have come and gone. It's not like a ghost, but more of just an overwhelming, powerful feeling of art and creativity. That's why, especially at Snow College, this building is beyond my favorite building, because I've met people that I love in here. I met Colin here, and if I hadn't come here, I don't think I ever would have met Colin. And we didn't even know, even when we first met, that we would mean that much to each other. And I think, like, in theater, you just don't know. Just like we came into this process not knowing that it would be what it would be, but we were happy and excited to go on this journey together.
And we're still on this journey together. It's not over yet. The show might be not what it was going to be, but we still have made our friends. We still have been together as a family, even if that's just a theater family. That's something that really you'll never lose. Even though everything else might seem overwhelming, in the end there's still going to be beauty in the relationships and the love and the memories.
And I feel like it's so symbolic that, Odysseus goes through all of these trials, and the way we had been working on it is like he gets pulled out of these because of Telemachus or Penelope, and I think going forward, I feel like that's how, as thespians or dancers or artists, we go forward knowing that there's always something worth fighting for. I feel like this experience has made me truly, truly appreciate theater for what it is. It's to feel that creativity and inspiration, and no matter if you go shipwreck after shipwreck, you will eventually get to where you're going. There will always be that underlying hope or something to fight for.
Even if it's, 10 years of trials, 10-year war, and then 10 years of trying to come home and find his family and go back to how things used to be. And after 20 years, he got to do that. After he went through hell and back, literally.
Literally.
Underworld.
Went to the underworld.
Yeah, the underworld, yeah.
Art to me is like, I came upon like self-discovery of like theater and art, when I was in school. But when I got into theater, I started realizing that the reason why I was doing art wasn't, it wasn't for the applause at night. It wasn't for someone coming up to me after and giving me a bouquet of flowers and saying, "You did a fantastic job." I love doing art for the feeling that I feel, but the hope that what I'm feeling is also being felt by everybody else. Like the feeling of we get to escape the world for a little bit that we live in, and that we get to live in realms of creativity and magic. And it's real. It's a real feeling that I feel we all feel as artists, is the feeling of to create, to inspire. I read the Odyssey in high school as like a requirement. I never really truly understood the love of Odysseus and Penelope until I read the adaptation of Mary Zimmerman. It's definitely helped me love not only Colin more, but just people in general more. Like, their love survived 20 years. Trent told us during a table work, that's our whole life. I'm 20, Colin's 20, that's a lifetime of love and commitment and devotion to each other. And I hope to keep that love with me as I go throughout life.
I mean, I can have a whole nother... I can talk for a really long time about Odysseus, and I've just scratched the surface of who Odysseus is, especially through the director's concept. And what an honor to be casted as Odysseus. I can't tell you how much it means to me, because being able to dive into his story and think about the things that have happened to him in relation to the real world. But yeah, it has just been a really cool experience to be able to relate Odysseus to real world experiences and people. There are a lot of people who have gone through trials just as hard as Odysseus and have come out on top just as Odysseus. Even though everything seems hopeless, just don't ever give up.
Great Captain, a fair wind and the honey lights of home are all you seek. But anguish lies ahead. You will make landfall on Thrinacia, the island of Helios, the sun. There you'll find his gentle grazing herds. Hear this. If your shipmates lay a hand on them, I see destruction for them all. You will survive, but alone and lost for years. Now, when you are home, take an oar upon your shoulder and walk so far inland that you find men who have never seen the sea, nor known its tides, nor waves, nor seen sea-going ships that glory in the wind. One day a passerby will ask about the oar, saying, "What is that on your shoulder?" A winnowing fan. At that moment stop and plant the oar in the ground. Then make sacrifice to Lord Poseidon. Do this, and a seaborne death, soft as this hand of mist, will come upon you when you are wearied out with rich old age. Your country folk in blessed peace around you. And all this shall be just as I foretell. And all this shall be just as I foretell.
So my experience with theater was nothing before I came to college. So I talked to Trent and was like, hey, next semester, can I get into theater more? And he's like, yeah. And so we got stuff set up so that I could work on Miracle on 34th Street as an assistant stage manager, which was a bigger role than I was anticipating. It was hard, but it was fun.
What made it so fun?
Honestly, the people. The people in the environment was the funnest thing, because it didn't matter what I had going on in my personal life, but when I came into the theater, everything was fun and I was happy. I think some of my favorite things were like group interactions that we had within the theater, and then individual interactions with different friends that I had made within the theater, and how we not only maintained those friendships within the theater and what we were doing, but then outside of theater we would get together and hang out and still have this bond that theater built for us.
So you've never experienced this sort of thing before?
No. In high school I was pretty introverted, and I had my group of friends, but we were all really introverted and didn't branch out as much, I guess. And with theater, you get a mix of introverts and extroverts and all sorts of different personalities that you just love each and every single one of them.
In high school, I was a side character for a play that my teacher wrote in A Doctor in Spite of Himself. We took that to state, I think it was my junior year of high school, and I was a walk-on role. I had like a total of 5 or 6 lines. The character was brought out of the blue and then taken out just as quickly, and I put my all into that. And then in musicals at the high school, I did ensemble roles, so just singing with the rest of the ensemble and just walking around being pedestrian on stage. At Snow College, what's the one called? Christmas Carol. During Christmas Carol, I was one of the wealthy guys who's like, oh, I'll go to Scrooge's funeral if it's lunch provided, ha ha ha. And then just dancing on stage and stuff. And then Miracle on 34th Street, the radio production, I was sound assistant, who technically doesn't have lines, but Josh reassigned some of the lines so that I could have 2 or 3 speaking lines. And so to have a part with dialogue was going to be really exciting for me. And, as things started narrowing down, like we can't have a big audience, we can't have an audience, it was okay because the idea was still that we were going to perform it. I was definitely frustrated, but I wanted the cast as a whole to continue with the idea. And maybe that was a bit selfish, but everybody was enjoying it from what I could tell. We were all excited to be playing with ping pong balls and making ships and destroying them and having Boston on a hoverboard. We were excited for it, even if not everybody had a larger role in it.
I don't know. It's just been such a good experience. There's been so many learning opportunities. My first year here at Snow, I was kind of just thrown the role of the production stage manager of Phantom of the Opera, and it was just crazy that, like, as a college, Snow trusted me with this giant, gargantuous thing, and they just let me take it and run with it, and it was so much fun.
What was your favorite role? Was that your favorite role?
That's hard, because I've also had the opportunity to design both lights and set while I've been here too. So being able to play both roles has been a lot of fun. I just like being a part of the entire process.
So what projects were you able to design?
So I was the assistant lighting designer for Pride and Prejudice, and then I was also the assistant set designer for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, as well as Phantom of the Opera.
How long have you been working on this project?
This project, since probably last semester. Probably December was when I started getting the gears rolling and doing research and figuring out what I needed to do to put together this piece of theater, because we had cut back so much of it, and to figure out as a stage manager what my duty was and how we were going to be cohesive with the dance department as well as the theater department.
What was your experience through the auditioning?
Through the auditioning?
Yeah.
It was a really simple audition, actually. It was a lot of fun. It was interesting to see the two different parts of an acting audition versus a movement audition, and to see the different people be there, because we did bring in our dance department and got to see how they work with our theater majors, and it was just so much fun.
What's it like to be a stage manager for two directors?
Stressful. Stage managers are generally the main point of communication between everyone, so having to talk to two different people, and especially when schedules are all over the place, it was hectic, but so fun to hear different opinions and different ideas and concepts on things.
So I was just really excited for this part to kind of be able to apply what I've learned and show to my friends from other schools, or to myself especially, this is why you keep doing this, even the times when you feel like you can't, you know, when I feel like I'm not good enough or out there enough or special enough or not talented or good or whatever. It was like, this is why it doesn't matter, talent doesn't matter, it's the work you put into it, that's what matters. And so I was going to kind of be the show for me. It was going to be a challenging one with all the movements and stuff like that. I was so excited, because I always looked at it and wanted to be able to do that, but then I never was much of a dancer, and so I never got really that time or experience to do stuff like that. And so I was so ready for this show. and I just finished doing tech for my second tech thing in my life for the show previous was Joseph. And so watching that one, like, I had a moment backstage one time during performance, I had a moment of, even though like I prefer to be on stage because that's my nature spot, like I just feel like I'm meant to be there, it was like there's nowhere I'd rather be than there. And I think that kind of thought, I'm glad I had that when I came into this, because it was a whirlwind.
What are your thoughts of art in the face of a pandemic?
I think it's complicated, and it's kind of tricky, because you have these plans and this idea, and then this crisis comes in and switches that all up and changes everything that's going on, which is difficult, because it's like building up this plan to do something, and then everything you just did is just for nothing, because you can't do the thing at the end. It's not fun.
What are your thoughts on art for art's sake?
I think art for art's sake is an amazing thing, especially with a group like you have in theater, because there's doing art for yourself too, but when you can do art for art's sake with a group of people that you enjoy being around, it makes it a fantastic memory to have and an awesome experience. Whether or not people outside of that get to see it, it just doesn't matter, because you're having fun and you're doing what you love with people you love.
I think that's the kind of the main reason we do it. I mean, there are beautiful moments when you can share art with people, and you can share your emotions and your feelings, and you can share part of yourself. But even though it's not shared, it doesn't mean that it isn't part of you and that you don't grow from creating that art.
And I think art in the face of a pandemic, in the face of crisis, is some of the more pure forms of expression, because if everybody's doing just dandy and you put on Beauty and the Beast, it's just fluff. It's still a good production, it's still enjoyable, but like, if everybody's in a good mood and the play has been rehearsed to death, then it's going to be just fluff. But if you have to make an effort to pursue your art, if you have to go beyond a pandemic wall, if you have to go beyond the crisis, then that just shows how much dedication you have for what you're doing, and often produces beautiful results. Like, people in times of war create wonderful things. And especially people who are locked up, which is what's happening a lot right now, they come up with some creative stuff, because all you have to work with is a box of pencils and paper. Whereas if you were to go to the store and say, oh, I want to be an artist, there's so many tools, but in the face of an epidemic, you're going to constrain that, which allows you to be more creative, because you're like, this is all I have to work with. I'm going to do everything I can with it.
I think that art itself is something that allows us to communicate through each other through something so much more than words. It's so much bigger than anything, and it's in everything as well. And I think that through the pandemic, it allows us to connect with each other, but it's also this whole now. Because the way that we perform art, at least in a theater, is very social, very much together, and not being able to be around each other is so draining, and I feel so lost, and I'm not really sure where to go from here. I don't know what the outlet is anymore, but I think it's something that I'll definitely figure out soon.
What's one of your favorite moments in the Odyssey, story or our show?
Favorite moments? Can I do favorite overall?
Yes, please.
I just like the overall story because he's going through so many different challenges and trials just like us. We had game plan after game plan after game plan, and even though none of them worked, we're still going to come out at the end, and we're still a family, you know. And we'll overcome the trials, and hopefully at the end of the day we're going to be stronger, and we'll know how to work harder and understand how much we love it so much more because we've had to go without.
Okay, it sounds weird, but it's been a cool learning experience and kind of growing opportunity to learn to deal with things falling through. Like learning to be there for your friends who you know are struggling a little bit more than you, and learn to be there for yourself in a way and find a path through the dark. So it's been kind of a good experience in that aspect, but I would prefer the experience of Odyssey.
How far-reaching do you think these effects will be for the department or for your own trail in life?
I think it will be a shift in course for both. It's a pretty hard turn, but that doesn't mean we're not going to get back to where we want to be. It's not the final chance, because you always keep going. And just because one thing ended doesn't mean you can't start something new and start again.
It's like nothing is gonna stop this. Art will always live on somehow. Theater will always live on. Even after some tragic event, somebody is gonna get up in front of somebody else and tell a story. And that's what I feel like we're doing. And especially realizing that the story of Odyssey, it relates to our situation a little bit now, and how all these things are just trying to pull him back to where he was and doesn't want to let him get to that end goal. Even if nobody sees, even if nobody else cares but the few of us that are here all the time, it is worth it. We get somewhere together in the end.
I think you want to have art in yourself. You want to have art in general if it wasn't for pain and sorrow. And yeah, there's a lot of art that's happiness and love. In my opinion, in order to feel all that happiness and love, you need to feel pain and sorrow. And in a crisis like we're having right now, where everything is shutting off and our country's kind of going on a federal shutdown, you want to have art in its true beauty without pain and sorrow. So yes, it's a sad thing, but I think it's something that needs to happen. Theater lives on. You could throw every virus at us, theater will always live on.
I see you in windows that open so wide, there's nothing beyond them and no one inside. You kick off your sandals and shake out your hair, the salt on your shoulders like sparks in the air. There's silt on your ankles and sand on your feet, the river too shallow, the ocean too deep. You smile at your suffering, the sweetest reprieve. Why did you leave us? Why did you leave? You kick off your sandals and shake out your hair. It's torn where you're dancing, it's torn everywhere. It's torn on the right and it's torn on the left. It's torn in the center, which few can accept. It's torn where there's beauty, it's torn where there's death. It's torn where there's mercy, but torn somewhat less. It's torn in the highest, from kingdom to crown. The messages fly, but the network is down. Bruised at the shoulder and cut at the wrist, the sea rushes home to its thimble of mist. The opposites falter, the spirals reverse, and Eve must re-enter the sleep of her birth. And up through the system the worlds are withdrawn, from every dominion the mind stood upon. And now that it's over, and now that it's done, the name has no number, not even the one. Gather the pieces, all scattered and lost, the lie in what's holy, the light in what's not. The story's been written, the letter's been sealed. You gave me a lily, but now it's a field. You kick off your sandals and shake out your hair. It's torn where you're dancing, it's torn everywhere.
What are your plans for the future? Will there be a future for the Odyssey? And how will you apply the lessons learned from our time here?
My plans for the Odyssey, that's a question that I hope to ask myself at a later time. Right now, I can't focus on the Odyssey. I have to focus on the Odyssey Abstraction, which is what we have been doing. At the moment, I've taken self-inventory. I'm really wondering if I'm going to actually mount it next year. You know, it's been such an emotional experience, emotional roller coaster, and it's taken a lot out of me. And there's almost like a magic or a holiness to upholding the standard that has been set by our cast, by our crew, and I don't want to detract from that. I want that to be the art that we have, you know. I mean, the Odyssey, it can happen again. It will happen again, probably in a couple of years. That's the great thing about Snow College is, that's one of the great things about Snow College is the quick turnover rate. So there's a kind of a short memory here. And we can start afresh with a new group of kids, and they can fill out the legacy of what has already been established with the Odyssey Abstraction. But right now, my attention is on the Odyssey Abstraction and finding our own stories in the pandemic, in the art that we have been building, so we can prove to others our standard, but also to ourselves our standard, that theater lives on, that art lives on, that storytelling lives on. Despite the gods, despite the fates, despite the pandemic or the epidemic, we can't help ourselves. We just can't help ourselves but tell stories. And what a beautiful thing that is. Yes, so this is Odyssey Abstraction. The film that we're making, the voices coming together, the shadow play that we threw together and threw ourselves into. That is the standard that we raise. That art lives on.
Oh,